Hey y'all, welcome back. My name is Crystal and I've got a book chat video for you today. I had mentioned in one of my wrap-ups that I was going to do a longer sort of chat about The Memory Keeper's Daughter by Ken Edwards. This is a book I read as part of my just little personal project of reading books that have characters with Down syndrome. And if you just Google like books that have characters with Down syndrome, this one is like always the number one. It was a very popular book. I know you always see this one in the thrift stores. I mean, like it's one of those books that everyone read, has read at some point, or that kind of book. I think maybe it was an Oprah book. I can't even remember now, but so I was like, well, let me get this one. Let me try this. Let me get this one out of the way. I went into it a bit hesitant, but I always read a book hoping that I will like it, but I ended up not loving this one. So let's dig into it. So a little bit about what it's about. The year's 1964, and we've got a married couple. What were their names again? I took notes. So we've got Nora and David, and Nora is about to give birth at any moment, and she goes into labor. And of course, it's like the middle of a snowstorm. This takes place, I think they're in Kentucky, from what I remember. And so they rush to this clinic. There's never really like hospitals or anything like that. But they get there, and her obstetrician is like, man, I can't. I'm not gonna be able to get there. I'm not gonna be able to get there. The roads are too bad. I'm sliding all over the place. That kind of thing. I can't make it. And so David, the father's like, well, I'm a doctor, and I think he's some sort of surgeon, but then he also does like clinic hours and things like that. But anyway, he's like, I'm a doctor. I mean, we can do this. We can do this. And so they're like, okay. He does call in his nurse, and the nurse's name is Caroline, and so she's there too to kind of help out. So she starts having the baby. Baby's born. It's a lovely little boy, and everything's good. And then Nora's like, oh, I'm having some more pain. Oops, here comes a twin. So they're like, whoa, scrambling, and they work on. She's delivering the other baby. Turns out it's a little girl. And as the father is looking at the baby, he's like, oh man, I've seen all these signs, these telltale signs, but it looks like this baby has Down syndrome. And it does go through these a lot of folks with Down syndrome have these certain physical traits, and almond-shaped eyes, a flattened bridge nose, or nose bridge nose, things like that. And he was like, oh man, and again, the year's 1964. I just want to reiterate, and he immediately goes to most people with Down syndrome have heart issues and do not live very long. And excuse me. And he immediately is like, he goes to the nurse and he's like, take this baby. I'm saving my wife pain here. Take this baby and please take it to this, sort of facility, a few towns over or wherever it is. And she's like, I mean, are you sure it's a baby? She's a beautiful baby girl. What do you want? I mean, are you sure? Kind of thing. And he's like, yes, I don't want this baby. I mean, essentially. And so she does. And she leaves in this storm and everything. And she does end up taking it to the facility, taking the baby. She sees the absolutely deplorable conditions. And she's like, I can't leave this baby here. I just can't do it. And she says, he doesn't want the baby, so what if I just take it? And so she does. She leaves town. She goes and ends up settling in like a Pittsburgh area, and she just starts over. She starts her life over with this baby girl that is not hers. Meanwhile, back at the clinic, the husband proceeds to tell his wife he had told the nurse that I'm going to tell her later. We took the baby to the facility and, all this kind of stuff, and I'll tell her everything. And then sort of the heat of the moment sort of thing, he tells his wife that the baby died. Okay? This secret is basically the thread for this entire story. And that's basically what it's about. These two babies now being raised separately by different families in different situations. And the rest of the book, we check in sort of throughout the years. We follow them all through until they're like in their early 20s, the two babies. And we kind of check in when they're 2. We kind of check in when they're like 5 or 6, and when they're like a preteen, that kind of thing. We kind of check in throughout the years, and we see what's going on with David and Nora, the married couple. We see what's going on with Caroline, the nurse, and what kind of life she's leading, that kind of thing. And it was fine. Okay. What I'm gonna get to possibly some spoilery stuff, but it's not crazy. Okay, so if you do want to end up still reading this book, I'm not gonna spoil everything. But one of the big reasons why David, who is the father, didn't want this baby is that he was really terrified of the possible heart issues. And what we come to find out is that David had a sister who had terrible heart issues, not Down syndrome related, but a heart problem. And this would have been, I guess, in the 1940s. If he was an adult in the 60s, this could have been like the 40s, I guess, that his sister had these issues. So even like more kind of worse conditions as far as getting help for heart problems, right? Anyway, she ended up dying when she was 12, and he, I think he had some resentment there, and he saw the absolute grief, that his mother went through, and I think he was trying to save his wife that grief, right? At least I think that's what he was telling himself, right? Throughout the years, as I said, we check in with the family. We see that David and Nora have grown apart. This secret, because Nora thinks her baby is dead, right? She thinks the baby's dead. They've had a funeral for it and everything, okay? And she has a hard time moving forward and moving past it. And she and David, they draw apart and things, and their relationship isn't the best, we'll say. Caroline, who is the nurse, she does send letters to David about Phoebe, which is the little girl with Down syndrome. She sends him letters and pictures of what's been going on in their life and things like that. And what do I want to say? He does end up sending her money, which she just saves and things like that. But she doesn't tell him where she lives. She keeps that a secret, and which I think is also kind of a pretty important part of the story. Now, I read these books because I want to see how the character with Down syndrome is portrayed. That's my whole reason, right? Is it good or is it bad? And ultimately, the character of Phoebe was okay. There's some of the things that, like I have a note here of Phoebe when she's at 6 years old. And Caroline, we see Caroline actually fighting to have Phoebe go to school because she wants to send her to school like every other kid. And I think this is a little important piece of history because kids with disabilities weren't guaranteed a spot at school, until the IDEA was formed, whatever, what I'm trying to say. And that wasn't until the 70s. So a lot of kids with disabilities just didn't go to school. So she wanted her to go to school, and she fought for her to go to school, and she did. So I thought that was pretty great. And the quote here that I wrote for that particular section was that she says, "I want her to have a place in the world." And I thought, I thought that was really, really pretty wonderful. Let's see, what else did I write down here? Once I wrote Nora herself, who was the mom, was extremely unlikable. Like I said, she has this trouble of moving past the death of her daughter, but she just becomes this like frigid, I don't know, I just didn't like her at all very much. So that wasn't very fun. David, I didn't really like much either. He's the father guy. Again, of course he's had this lie to his wife, and the lie lasted years and years, 20 years, over 20 years. And so, yeah, I don't know. Okay. We get to the part of the book when the kids are like, they're grown up. They're like, and they're in their 20s. And Phoebe actually falls in love with this other little fellow that has Down syndrome. And Carol, I do not like the way Caroline reacted in that situation. She like totally lost her shit and overreacted, and says, even says to her like, you can't get married. And this is, I wrote here at the time, Phoebe was 24 years old. Okay, whatever. And then she's talking to, I think, her husband at the time, because she ended up getting married. And that Phoebe will have dreams that can't come true. How sad. Gross. I wrote Blick down here. And I don't know. She's like thinking what she wants to do with Phoebe now that she's an adult. What should I do with Phoebe now? Should I put her in this facility? I don't know. Caroline is very controlling of her life. In some ways, it's understandable. Phoebe isn't always observant of the inherent dangers in her day-to-day life. There's this scene where she's riding on a public bus and is possibly getting harassed by this man, that kind of thing. But at the same time, Phoebe is a grown-ass woman. So I didn't like a lot of the portrayal of Phoebe as an adult. And that would have been in the 80s, the 1980s, right? And I don't know. It portrayed her in a way that it really made her less of a person and more of this problem to be handled. And I hated it. So a lot of the things that were mentioned in the early parts of the book about Down syndrome were very kind of spot on as far as, like I said, those physical traits, which are very common in people with Down syndrome. I have a kid with Down syndrome. I said that before, but in case you are just watching one of these videos for the first time, this is why I want to read books about have characters with Down syndrome, because I have a kid with Down syndrome and I want to just see what's out there, right? Anyway. The portrayal, Phoebe being a late walker, she didn't walk until I think 2 or so. My kid didn't walk until it was 2.5. So these like gross motor delays are very, very common in Down syndrome. That stuff was fine, and because it was true. And this stuff, it was a real portrayal of Down syndrome in my experience, right? But again, once she got into an adulthood, I don't know. Like, she did have a little job, which I really liked. She worked at a coffee shop, and she seemed to enjoy that. I don't know that she was actually getting paid for it. I didn't actually say anything about that. So I don't know about all that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm meandering a little bit, but I didn't love this book. And I don't think the portrayal of someone with Down syndrome, particularly as she got older, was helpful and done very well, and done in a way that, presented someone with Down syndrome as a fully realized person, in my opinion. Okay, this is my opinion. You can take it for what it is. But one thing I'm just going to say this is I expected some language issues, right? Because of the time period that this was taking place. And the R word was definitely in here. I tallied it 7 times. It was used 7 times. And primarily it was used in the latter half of the book. Do I spoil this? I'm going to spoil something. So skip ahead of like a minute if you don't want it spoiled. But once the secret comes out, because the dad has passed away, and so Caroline comes to Nora and is like, this is your daughter Phoebe, right? And so little boy Paul, and they're not little boy Martha, he's like talking about how I have this sister now, but she's, I can't say the word. It's so disgusting. But he used the R word, I know, probably about 5 of those 7 times in that section where he's like, I don't know how to like act around her because she's R word, and I don't know how to, I mean, does she even have a life? You know, what does she even do? I didn't like that. I didn't like that either. One thing I liked, okay, when Paul was talking with Phoebe, when they actually finally got to meet, is that he asked her, actually, does she like her life? And she said, yeah, I'm very happy with my life. And I thought that was quite lovely, actually. A lot of times I think people assume that someone with Down syndrome or a disability has an atrociously awful life. And a lot of times they just don't. So, but back to the R word, like I was saying, I expected it at least, a handful of times, and it was in there. What I didn't expect, right there in the beginning of when the babies were born and David was looking at Phoebe, he actually used the word mongoloid. Oh my God. Again, I know it was 1964, but holy shit, I did not expect that. And I was actually like, I couldn't believe it was in there. And maybe I should have. Again, I was expecting the R word. I was not expecting that word. Oh my God, it's so offensive. It's so awful. It's such an ugly, awful word. Anyway, it's right there in the beginning of the book. So if you're going to read it, please know it's there. Because I literally just was like, oh, it's so awful. Any other notes? I had another note here about Phoebe. She was always described as being chunky and stocky and stubby. It's like, okay, a lot of times people with Down syndrome can be overweight, but they have like other health issues. It's like that doesn't, like, you don't have to like every time describe her as being chunky. Like every time we talk about her, oh, look at her cute stubby little legs. Oh, look at her fat little round face. Man, again, I didn't love this book. I did not like the portrayal of the character with Down syndrome, particularly as she got older. This book was definitely a disappointment. I will not recommend it as a book to read. As a positive character with Down syndrome, I will not recommend this one. I've talked a really long time about this book, and it doesn't deserve this much time, actually. So, but if you've watched it, thanks for watching. And I'm gonna keep this series going. Like I said, it's a pet project. I'm going to keep reading some books. I have got a few middle grade books on my shelves that I want to get to soon, and see how those are, because those are books geared towards children. So I want to see how those are done as well. And I think that's all I want to say about it. I ended up giving it 2 stars just because I did read it. I didn't DNF it. I was going to finish it anyway, but I just didn't love it, guys. So have you read it? I mean, what'd you think about it? Maybe as someone who actually knows someone with Down syndrome, I have different feelings about it. I know a lot of people freaking love this book, and like I said, I have loved it over the years. So I'm sure I'm in the minority when it comes to that, but kind of hated it. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I will chat with you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.